Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Random Thoughts. I am your humble DM, Tim. Today, we're going to talk about something. I don't know how much I have to say about this, but it's something that I've wanted to talk about for a while, and that is the why. The why of dungeon mastering, or why you should dungeon master, or why you shouldn't dungeon master. Just all the why people do dungeon master. At least for me, anyway. Now, a lot of people that get into being a dungeon master tend to sort of stumble into it because they're the one that ended up getting the short end of the stick, as it were. They drew the short straw. Everyone wanted to play D&D, but no one wanted to DM, and so you end up as the one being the DM, and then you also have the issue of becoming the forever DM. Honestly, I don't see that as much of a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a great thing, because something you have to remember about being a dungeon master is you get to take people on some really fantastic, hopefully so, some really fantastic adventures, and you have some really good times. And you're the one guiding your friends through these worlds and creating new worlds and discovering things, not necessarily good things all the time, about your friends along the way. It's that voyage of discovery that ends up happening when you become a DM. But for me, when I became the forever DM that I currently am, the reason I got into it was because there was a story that I really wanted to tell. Now, a lot of dungeon masters have the exact same thing, where there's a story that they want to get out, which is why dungeon masters tend to prepare as much as they do, and you can sometimes feel like you're on the rails because they want the party to go on a particular track because they have a story laid out for them. And again, that can be a good and a bad thing. Being prepared is always a good thing. But something else about being a dungeon master is you should never be afraid to step off the tracks every now and then. The tale that sticks in my mind the most when it comes to this was probably the first game that I ever ran. Essentially, what had happened was I'd been watching all these sorts of videos on all these different things on YouTube about all these different campaigns and thought, yes, this is awesome. This is what I want to run. But the problem that I always have is that I couldn't decide what it was I wanted to run specifically. And so, much like the name of this channel, I took everything and chucked it into a blender and mixed it all together and let it all shake out. Now, I think it all turned out pretty well, but one of the things I discovered very early on was that you should never be afraid when things go completely wrong. Case in point, we were playing Curse of Strahd. Basically, what I wanted to do was I watched Curse of Strahd online with dice camera action, and I thought, this is cool. Let's start with Curse of Strahd so I can get the feel for things, and then we'll keep on going with my overall arcing adventure, the one that I'd come up with. We'll sort of springboard off Curse of Strahd after that. And there was this one incident which has gone down in infamy, known as the werewolf incident. Anyone who's played Curse of Strahd will know that there is a werewolf den hidden, I believe, near the lake in Curse of Strahd. And the party was not ready for this encounter. There was no way they were going to be able to deal with it. However, they were wandering around near this area, and they were investigating because they'd heard the noises. I described the sounds and everything. And I said, all right, well, give me a perception check. Let me see if you spot anything. And of course, they'd rolled the natural 20, and boom, they spotted the werewolf den. And then they went into the werewolf den and got absolutely bushwhacked. And fortunately, they were smart enough to run away. Like, I was dropping the hints, like, you hear there are more of them coming. You really should get out of here, because I didn't want to wipe the party out, of course, because no DM really wants to TPK their party unless it's that kind of game. But eventually, they did make a run for it. They bolted out of the place and were safe until much, much later in the adventure, when they encountered the werewolves again, and the one party member that had nearly gone down from the werewolf den encounter wanted their revenge. But the hilarious thing was that they didn't have the weapons that were able to actually injure the werewolf. And so I had the werewolves running away, and she's chasing them down the hill, doing no damage to them whatsoever, but not realizing that she's doing no damage to them. And everyone's just like, you should come back, come back. But they weren't listening. And again, it's how DM tales and party fables and other bits and pieces are made. Another thing that I learned with the Curse of Strahd adventure actually was collaborating with a party member as the DM to actually screw over the other team members. It can be a lot of fun. Because there was an incident, again, in the Curse of Strahd campaign where there was the Amber Temple. And one of the characters had become infected by one of the dark powers within the Amber Temple. Now, in the book, it says that the DM takes control of that character for the rest of the campaign, or at least for that particular bit. And I thought that kind of sucked, because, this person, out of curiosity, touched one of the sarcophagi, ended up getting possessed, and so that means game over. Again, if I was, a bit more of an experienced DM, I would have maybe done that and just told them, but because I'm new to it and my friends were also new to it, I didn't want to, again, to mess up the adventure as it was been going, at least, because I liked their character. And, we'd also planned for some potential story arcs down the line. And so what we ended up coming up with was a thing where her character would become almost like a mini boss, where she would go around and absorb all of the dark powers within this thing and become this miniature god within the temple, and then she would be able to to attack the party, and then they would be able to basically resurrect her after the fact using I believe they used the Necromancer's spellbook, I think, after the adventure was going. But it was a lot of fun. After that particular section. But I just remember the planning stage of that. So I sort of gave this player some insight into what some of her party members had, and suggested, well, you could always try this, because we have like a bag of devouring. So, in the night you could wake up, you are a rogue, you could sneak up, put the bag of devouring over someone's head, grab this particular item and bolts, and, just all this sort of stuff. And that little bit of that planning is the fun part, I think. So that's another thing a lot of people don't really do as Dungeon Masters, I don't think. Never be afraid to involve a player in trying to screw over other members of the party, because they'll do it. They will help you. They will help you to do that kind of stuff more readily than you'd expect. It's always been interesting to me. But yeah. I don't know. A bit of a short one, I guess. It's just something that I've just been pondering about. I guess realistically what I'm trying to say is, why would anyone want to be a dungeon master, or why should you be a dungeon master? And I'll tell you why. Because it's really, really fun. Because you should always have an idea of where you want to go. Like, basically, if you have a story, if you have an adventure, if you have a concept, something that you really want to get out there, if you have like a favorite TV show that you think you could adapt into an adventure of some kind, and you think that your friends would be into that sort of thing, I would definitely recommend doing it, because I don't think I've met anyone who has ever become or played as a dungeon master that has regretted it. There'll always be incidences where you'll have bad sessions, and you'll occasionally come across, bad players depending on where you're running it. But when it comes down to it, when you have a story in here, everyone has at least one great story in them. And if you think that it is a story that your best friends can enhance and come along with you and make it better by sharing it with them, then that, I think, is the key to being a dungeon master. To have a story that you want to tell, and to bring your friends along and make them live that world and that story with you. And hopefully they will appreciate it as much as you do. But again, if they don't, it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because you can always learn from failure. Even though, and again, I guess not even, actually, you know what, not even failure. You can just always learn. You can improve. I don't think there's ever been an incident, well, I'll tell a lie. There's been one that I would call a failure of a game, but I won't go into that. There's been games that I've just called an end to, but yeah, look, I'm not going to get into that. That's a massive rabbit hole. Maybe another story. I'll probably do another one on absolute failures in my my dungeon mastering career. Well, the one absolute failure at some point, maybe, probably not. But anyway, for now, thank you all very much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. I have been your humble DM, Tim, and until next time, everybody, remember to keep on blending. Bye.